Matt Getsi, and welcome to episode 7 of Along the Journey. As you may have noticed from my nifty, cheesy, and slightly, I don't know what you call it, suggestive introduction, we're not focusing on drums today, nor on keys, but actually on the bass. Got some great stuff coming up for you today. Chuck Getsi came up to do his some bass parts on some stuff. Jazz thing, the stuff he did on that was phenomenal. Yes, awesome, amazing. It was great. So anyway, got an interview with Chuck about what he did and how he came up with his part. And we're going to show you some stuff about that right now. Stay tuned. Hey, it's Matt Getsi, and welcome to Along the Journey, where I get to take you on my journey. So buckle up. This could be a wild ride. Hey, it's Matt Getsi, and today I've got Chuck Getsi, my nephew, with me.
Hello.
Bass player. Try that again. Bass player extraordinaire. We're actually going to be working on the jazz thing today, and Chuck has a very challenging part. So just tell me, what were you thinking about as you were kind of coming up with a part for this bizarre little song?
The biggest thing is I wanted to make sure that it was very, it had its own voice to it. That it wasn't just, it was a support role, but it also had its own voice to add texture to the song. That's what took forever to figure out what was the right, patterns and things that I was trying to say to give the song the most power to it.
And you had mentioned earlier, because we talked about this on the phone several times. But one night I remember you calling and you were working on it, and you said, you kind of had some ideas with the feel of the part being similar to Kid Charlemagne of Steely Dan, that bass part. And, as you said that, I was like, ooh, Steely Dan, because, one of my all-time favorite groups. But at the same time, I was thinking, Kid Charlemagne, how does that one go? But I'm like, oh, if it was a Steely Dan part, it's cool. It works for me.
Right.
So, and this song, which doesn't really sound anything like Kid Charlemagne, but it's still got something really interesting about it. And I do recall that song because it does have a very distinct bass line that doesn't really follow much of what's going on, but it still supports it, which is cool.
That was the thing, because it was the bass player, Chuck. Oh God, what's his last name? He's awesome. I can't think of his name. Hold on. Chuck Rainey. That was his name.
Okay, take two. Okay.
What I was looking for that. It was more of a Chuck Rainey kind of feel that he presented to those classic Steely Dan songs, which more of he kind of took from a James Jamerson kind of thing for the Motown, kind of stuff, and just kind of have something that walked, that just had a good, drive to it, but wasn't trying to just take it, look at me, I'm a bass player, but something that was of the rhythm section and played along with the drums, but also was a support role underneath the piano, because this is a piano song. This is trying, and it's like, as a bass player, that's what you're always trying to do, is be the best supporter that you can. But also, this having a bass solo in it, bass really isn't traditionally a solo instrument. So when you get to do that, you're like, well, for me, I just didn't want to stink it up and, play, I can play a chromatic, or I can play a pentatonic or something like that, but I wanted to have something that had a voice to it. And that's what took the longest.
So speaking of the bass solo, so we've been working on that today, and we're going to give you guys a sneak peek of this very, very soon. But so as far as like how challenging this part is, would you say that this that this was kind of a stretch for you?
Yeah, because there again, instead of like playing, just staying on the root of it, I wanted to play what were things that sound like if I started on the major third or whatever, or on the minor third, I meant, or started on the fifth of it or something like that, because I wanted to have I didn't want to be boring and just play the root, start on that. So that was my first thinking, and then okay, now how do I do that? So started playing with different things of what's the relative major to this, right now, which is G, and so I started playing around with that, and I was like, well, if I add this note and it's on top of that note, then things started building.
Right.
In one of the licks, it was just by accident, and those are always when the best things happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, we actually have recorded this part already, so we're gonna kind of replay it and let Chuck play along with it. And I'm gonna capture some footage of him on the neck, because some of the feats that he accomplishes with this are pretty impressive, I gotta say. So anyway, but as we were doing it, there was one lick that we worked on. That's a really tough lick. You've got to move dramatically in a lot of places very quickly and very smoothly and quietly. So we were doing that, and we had this lick, and we were going back to actually just redub that one spot because it was a really challenging spot. And so at one time he thought, okay, I'm going to do it an octave higher, see if it sounds cleaner there. So he did that. So then the next time through, I guess in his mind, he's like, which does sound better? So he played it low that time, but I had the high one playing, and we heard the low and the high together. Yeah. And we were like, wow, that sounds cool. So at one point, we actually have octaves of the bass solo doing that, which sounded really, really neat. Mm-hmm. So at any rate, we're going to show you part of that right now, but we wanted to just talk a little bit about it so you can kind of see the creative process behind this. Because even though it was my song, I didn't tell him this is what I want you to play.
Right.
I just sent it to him and said, see what you can do to this. And
my initial was
and that's where we left off. Actually, it's really cool. So we're going to share that with you, but you'll see that in just a minute.
All right.
So there you have it. Another sneak peek at the jazz thing. That one's almost done because I believe I'm going to keep it traditional jazz format, which is jazz trio, piano, bass, and drums. That's just the traditional jazz format, and I really kind of am thinking we're going to leave it that way. So anyway, there's another quick look at it. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time where I get a little bit more personal in some of the things I'm sharing. So it's all part of the story, so hang on. We'll see you next time. Until then, God bless and pray hard.